What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. We're talking about Prot Paladin today. I'm just doing some work on the dummy here. I've got a dungeon I'm going to show you, actually, one of the new dungeons that's coming out in Dragonflight. But I did just want to talk about Prot Warrior and how it's feeling in Dragonflight. Some of the tools that it has to stay alive, which is obviously very important. As you can see, I'm dying right now. One of the biggest problems for Prot Warrior, of course, has always been its sustain. It really doesn't have real sustain, and it hasn't in Shadowlands for a long time, simply because of the amount of block that it gets naturally, and then the lack of like actual just straight up healing buffs that it gets compared to something like a Death Knight or even a Paladin. In particular, last video I had was a Prot Paladin video, really showcasing how much sustain the Prot Paladin has. Now, of course, Prot Warrior gets the best physical damage reduction in the entire game with shield block, which is pretty insane and very, very strong. But at the end of the day, a lot of the times you need the big ability to heal and to get yourself back to full health. And they don't have as much of that, but certainly they do have some. Way more now in Dragonflight than they did in Shadowlands, which is very encouraging to see. And it's exciting because it's like, it's like the only weakness that Prot Warrior really had, in my opinion. Besides that, they've got really good spell reflect. Obviously, with spell reflection itself, they're getting even more help in that department in Dragonflight. So they've got good physical blocking with shield block. They've got good spell reflection and magic damage reduction with spell reflect. I'm going to die. What did we get him to? Something. They're 40, maybe 35 or 40 almost. They've got really good tools that help them mitigate different forms of damage. They just didn't have the sustain. And they do have it now. And obviously I just died there, but that was getting the dummy up pretty high there. What's he at? 37, almost 40 stacks there. So I'm only level, fresh level 60. I'm 64, sorry. So I do have a few talents that I picked up here. But let me talk about some of the talents for Prot Warrior. What's coming in that's making them stronger. And there's a couple of big things that are happening for Prot Warrior. Number one, they're getting sort of more damage than they even had before, which is pretty wild. And number two, like, they're getting damage in the form of things like Thunderous Roar and the bleeds coming out of Thunderclap. And then number two, they're getting sustain. They are getting the ability to actually sustain. And I wasn't even taking all the sustain talents. I could have taken Pain and Gain, which is when you take any damage, you heal. That's a conduit that's on in Shadowlands right now, and that's going baseline. So you heal for 4.5% of your maximum health. Of course, you're getting Victory Rush now, or Impending Victory. You'll still have baseline Victory Rush, where you can, if you kill an enemy, you get access to Victory Rush for like 20 seconds. But now you can take Impending Victory and also take Indomitable over here. So you have those two different forms of healing. Every time you use Rage, you're healing for 1% of your maximum health per 10 rage spent. You also have Impending Victory, which is getting you that on-demand heal, which is really what was lacking, has been lacking for the last couple of expansions. On top of that, you have your regular Ignore Pain, which they actually buffed in this expansion, and you're going to get something like Brutal Vitality. 30% of the damage you deal adds to your active Ignore Pain, or Fueled by Violence, which is probably a little bit better in AoE environments, but I still don't think it's that good, but we'll have to see. It could be 50% of the damage you do by deep wounds is pretty strong. So they do get lots of sustain now. Also, you're getting some really, really cool tech things like spell block, right? The ability to block all spells cast against you for 14 seconds. This is going to be a situational ability. There's going to be some situations where it doesn't matter at all, but there's going to be some where it's very, very good. On top of that, you've obviously got all your main, heavy-hitting abilities like Last Stand heals you for 30% and gives you 30% max health. Shield Wall, 40% less damage taken. You can do massive buffs to Shield Wall with The Wall or Unbreakable Will, which I haven't taken either of these because, again, I don't have all the talent points. I'm missing about 5 talent points over here on this side. I could get Shield Block lasting longer or go for a damage option. At the very bottom, you have things like Shield Charge, and it's going to give you the legendary effect that a lot of us have used right now, which is called Reprisal in Shadowlands, but it's not called that anymore. It's called Champion's Bulwark. Shield Charge grants you Shield Block and Revenge, generates 30 Rage. That only is from Shield Charge, so it's not tied to Intervene or regular charge anymore. They've just tied it to this ability, which is called Shield Charge, which actually looks really dope. It looks like a really good ability. And then, of course, you have Ravager over here on the other side, but There's also a cheat death here. When your health is brought below 35% health, you take 75% less damage for 8 seconds. And healing you receive is doubled. So this is a lot. 8 seconds of 75% DR is actually insane. And I didn't even have this spec'd. I also didn't have Bitter Immunity, which is another ability you're getting in Dragonflight now. Restores 20% of your health instantly and removes all diseases, poisons, cures, and bleeds affecting you. So that's another heal on top of all of it that I wasn't even taking because I was just kind of testing it out on the dummies. There's a lot here, guys. There's a lot. There's a lot of options for Warrior. So many different ways that you can get into your sustain as well. Now you also have things like Siphoning Strikes, 5% leech and another 5% leech from one-handed melee. So you get 10% leech at all times. At all times, which is really, really good. I just realized as well, I wasn't even in defensive stance. Which is 20% DR, by the way. 20% less damage taken. I wasn't even in defensive stance. I really should have been. But I just forgot. I was just messing around with Berserker stance. So there's a lot of options for Prot Warrior. I'm happy about it. Let me just jump into this dungeon over here for a second. I'll show you some of the gameplay. It's not that big of a deal because these dungeons are just so, like, they're just not that great, to be honest, because they're such low level. Like, everybody's such low level right now. Oops, I'm just moving something right now. What is this? Let's grab this one instead. Thank you. You stay there. So you can see here, we actually just got the first boss down. This is Oldemon, Legacy of Tyr. This is sort of the new Oldemon, and it's good. It's fun. And one thing I just want to highlight that's so obvious to me right now is that in AoE situations, especially, you're invincible on Prot Warrior. You still get your tier set bonus if you want. That's called the Seeing Red. Is it Outburst? So you consuming rage gets you stacks of Seeing Red, which then turns into Outburst. You can still grab that as a talent for Prot Warrior. I would highly suggest you do that because it's very, very good for damage, especially. And another thing that's really good for damage, as you can see here, I'm trying to gather all the mobs up so I can put Rend on all of them, and they all have Rend except for one guy here. So I really love this playstyle. There's a really, really good, like, Clap Lord playstyle that's going to be happening now for all the dungeons for Prot Warrior, in my opinion, for damage. For AoE, Mythic plus damage, this is going to be, like, the go-to build. And that is basically that you take Avatar, of course, and you take Unstoppable Force, which means when you're in Avatar, your Thunderclap does more damage, and it has less cooldown. And then on the spec side of the tree, you're going to take Thunderlord, which is a legendary we had in Shadowlands that I was using actually on my Prot Warrior. It wasn't really a common one, but I really enjoyed it. But you can see here, you start off with Rend on one target, then I'm going to press Thunderclap, and then everything's going to get rended. Okay? So I'm going to Demoralizing Show first. There, Rend. Now, I turned off my plates, but I thought I just instantly killed everything. But now there's Rend on everything, and every time you press Thunderclap, you will continuously rend enemies. So it's like, it goes infinite, especially with this build, because you're focusing on pressing Thunderclap. Thunderclap has like a much lower cooldown, etc., etc. So there's a new form of damage coming in for Prot Warrior where it's all about bleeds. There's a lot of bleeds going on here where you're pressing Rend on one enemy, and then you're clapping, and it kind of funnels. You're sending that Rend out to all other enemies that are nearby, and it's doing a lot of damage, and you can take talents that buff it. For instance, there's a talent on the spec side called Bloodborne, and that says that Deep Wounds and Rend and Thunderous Roar bleed effects deal 30% more damage. So you can really do like a full-blown bleed build, and I'm going to keep trying it in the beta right now in Dragonflight. But you get a bleed from every time you press Revenge on an AoE pack or Devastator for like a single turn. I'm taking Devastator, which is where I Devastate just goes on, like it just attacks by itself, basically. So you have your Deep Wounds bleed from Rend on AoE. You have this Rend Thunderclap bleed hitting all AoE now, and you have Thunderous Roar, which now also puts a bleed, and they're all doing 30% more damage. So very, very strong bleeds going on there. Thunderous Roar, if you guys don't know, is the old Dragon Roar. I forget what it's called, but it's not the Dragon Roar anymore. It's called Thunderous Roar, and instead of it having like the crit multiplier where it crits for 4 times normal value, yada yada, it now just puts a bleed on enemies. So you roar explosively in a frontal cone, causing 6,000 physical damage and causing enemies to bleed for an additional 6,000 physical damage over 8 seconds. And again, that's buffed by 30% from the other talent I just talked about. And there's a buff to Thunderous Roar itself. There's one more talent below it that says you increase the duration of Thunderous Roar's bleed by 2 seconds. So instead of it being 8 seconds, it's a 10-second bleed now. And then it increases the damage of all your bleed effects by 20%. So your deep wounds from Revenge, your Rend, Thunderclap bleed, and Thunderous Roar are all going to be 20% stronger. And, of course, they're already 30% stronger from the Bloodborne talent that we're taking on the spec side. So you have 50% more damage from your bleeds. That's actually quite significant. That's no joke. That's going to be a definite playstyle in Mythic Plus, I think, for Prot Warrior. Having this ability to just bleed enemies out, like huge AoE bleeds on the whole pack. I think that's going to be very, very strong. On top of that, you could take Fueled by Violence. Again, 50% of the damage that's dealt by just your deep wounds is going to be healing you. Now we're increasing the damage of deep wounds by 50% with these talents I just talked about, when you're using Thunderous Roar and when you have Bloodborne. And so that's actually a lot of damage that's now going to be healing you. So, again, some more synergy there to think about. I think Prot Warrior is looking really good, guys. It's looking really good. Your periodic bleed effects can also give you Rage. I forgot about that one. It's called Blood Surge. So your periodic bleed effects have a chance to grant you 5 Rage. Again, in AoE, you can see in this dungeon right now, I'm just never running out of Rage. Like, it's so insane. I'm trying to spend it, but I don't even need to. You know, I think what's kind of cool about this, this isn't even showing up this well in single target, but in AoE, you're going to have a monstrous amount of Rage. And what that means is you'll have more ability to press Revenge, in my opinion, because a lot of the times for Prot Warrior, the higher keys that you do, you don't have any time to press Revenge anymore because you're taking so much extra damage that you have to mitigate it. You have to use your abilities like Ignore Pain and Shield Block, and you don't really get to press your damaging abilities as much because you're busy trying to survive. So here's a bit of a bigger pull. You can see I've done Demo Shout. I've rended one enemy here, and now I'm going to press Thunderclap. And everybody's going to get rend. Now everybody's bleeding. So I've pressed Revenge, and I've pressed my Thunderclap with my rend. So now I have 2 bleeds going. I have Deep Wounds, and I have Rem. In this dungeon, I was 1 level up away from getting my my Roar, so I didn't actually have the Roar that did the additional bleed, Thunderous Roar. So that was kind of unfortunate, but you can see I'm just rage capped this entire time. Once the bleeds start to look at, I'm at 37 range. Watch the bleeds just go 40, 47, 50, 65, 81, 96. Like, the bleeds just start kicking in, and they just start generating insane amounts of rage while I'm doing my regular rage generation with, like, Shield Slam and Thunderclap, and, you know, I'm just generating it again anyway. So on top of that, you've got extra ways to generate rage from the class tree, which is really helping things like War Machine. Again, War Machine used to compete with other talents that were a little bit better, and you wouldn't have taken them before. So now your auto attacks are generating 50% more rage, which is very strong. You get double time on your charge, which means you're generating more rage pack to pack to pack, because you can get that extra charge in and get a bunch of extra rage generated as well. I'm running the build that cools down Avatar much more quickly. Avatar gives you 20 rage. So again, just more ways to get that rage. And on top of that, we're getting our tier set bonus of Outburst. Oh, I just got gripped through the wall there. Look at this. I had 4 evokers in this. So I'm about to kill this pack, and then I get yoinked through the wall. This is going to be so annoying for some people. They're going to hate this, but it's actually kind of funny when it happens, legitimately. So this is kind of neat, guys. I'm really enjoying this build. Let me just run to the end of the last boss here. Oop. This the last part? Yeah, we're almost there. Here we go. This is the final boss. So I'm really enjoying Warrior. I think, like, this whole bleed package that's come in, I'm going to monitor it a little bit more over the next week or so and really try to maximize this build with Thunderous Roar, with my Deep Wounds bleed coming from Revenge, spreading it around, right? And on top of that, having the Rend plus Thunderclap bleed, buffing them all, buffing their damage by 30% and then 50% when I use Thunderous Roar. Clap, clap, clap. It's a really fun play style. Really enjoying Prot Warrior so far, and I think the ability for it to sustain itself has never been better. You know, especially the healing coming from deep wounds potentially being really good. I got to try that talent combination out. Also getting just impending victory baseline on top of Indomitable, on top of a bunch of new abilities that we're going to have. Bitter immunity in the class tree, which gives you 20% of your health and removes all debuffs. And then getting the cheat death with Battle Scarred Veteran. I think that all these things put together are making Prot Warrior a really, really strong candidate as a tank, and I'm really loving it. I think it's going to be awesome. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think about Prot Warrior so far? Do you think it's going to be strong? Have you tried it out on the beta? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. I would love to hear them. So thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you in the next one.